I knew something was wrong the moment I opened the front door before I saw anything, before I heard anything. It was the silence. A sharp, suffocating kind of silence that didn't belong in our house. Then I heard it. The sound of someone crying, but not the kind that comes from sadness or a bad memory. This was a torn, strangled sob, like someone was trying not to scream while their soul split apart piece by piece. It froze me in place. I had heard my grandmother cry before she raised me, after all, through every scraped knee and broken heart, but never like this. Never like she was fighting for air, fighting for words, fighting the weight of something she couldn't carry. And in that instant, as the sound trembled through the house, one horrifying thought rooted itself inside me. Whatever happened didn't just hurt her. It shattered her. I dropped my keys on the table and rushed into the living room. She was there, sitting on the very edge of the sofa, hunched over as if her own body was too heavy to hold. Her thin shoulders trembled with every breath. Her hands were clasped so tightly that her knuckles were white. And her eyes, those gentle, familiar eyes that had watched over my entire childhood, were unfocused, swollen, terrified. Grandma. My voice cracked. She looked up at me, but it was like she wasn't seeing me at all. She opened her mouth to speak, but only a rasp came out. A tiny broken sound. I ran to her side, kneeling in front of her. What happened? What's wrong? Talk to me, please. But she just shook her head weakly. Tears slid down her cheeks without resistance, as if she didn't even feel them. That was when I heard footsteps behind me. Emily. My younger sister walked in from the hallway, her phone still in her hand, her breathing quick and uneven like she'd been pacing. Her expression was tight, too tight to be natural, and her eyes flicked from me to Grandma, and then away almost too quickly. "Oh, Nat," she said, forcing air into her voice. When I got here, she was already like this. I don't know what happened. Something in the way she said it made my stomach twist. The tone was wrong too, rehearsed, too polished, too prepared. Emily never prepared anything. She was impulsive, emotional, messy. But this sounded like a line she had practiced. I didn't respond. I turned back to Grandma, brushing a loose strand of hair away from her face. Her skin felt cold, almost clammy. She was trembling. "Can you breathe okay?" I whispered. "Do you feel sick?" She tried again to speak. Her throat moved, her lips parted, but no words formed, only a soft, choked moan that broke what was left of my heart. Emily stepped closer. Maybe she just panicked. You know how she gets when she's stressed. "Since when does she get like this?" I shot back, my eyes never leaving Grandma. Emily hesitated. Just for a second, but long enough for me to notice. Then she shrugged too casually. "Well, lately she's been more emotional. Old age, Nat. It happens. Old age." I hated how dismissive she sounded, like Grandma was suddenly a fragile, confused inconvenience. I helped Grandma lean back against the pillows, raised her feet, and brought her a glass of water. Her hands trembled as she held it, spilling droplets onto the blanket. She took one sip, coughed, and handed it back with a defeated look. Emily hovered. She never hovered. She picked up a throw pillow, adjusted a picture frame, smoothed the blanket, set the glass down, picked it up again. It was as if she needed her hands busy so she wouldn't have to meet my eyes. "Emily," I said quietly, "did something happen before I came home?" "No," she replied a little too quickly. "I told you she was like this when I arrived." I finally turned to look at her fully. Her face was carefully composed, too carefully. Her cheeks were flushed. A strand of hair stuck to the side of her forehead. She kept wiping her palms against her jeans. My intuition, something I'd ignored too many times in the past, rose in my chest like a warning siren. I took Grandma's hands into mine, hoping the warmth would calm her. That was when I saw it. A faint bruise on her left wrist, half hidden under the cuff of her sweater. A human handprint. "Emily," I said, my voice low and too steady to be natural. "What happened to her wrist?" She glanced quickly, then looked away. "Oh, that. She must have bumped it on something. She's been dropping things lately. And tripping." Grandma shook her head violently, small rapid movements that came from pure panic. I tightened my grip on her hands. "Did she?" I asked again, this time staring Emily down. Emily's jaw twitched. "Nat, don't start. I would never touch her. You know that. But I didn't know that anymore." Grandma let out a soft, trembling cry. She gripped my sleeve like she wanted to pull me closer, like she wanted to hide behind me. That was all I needed. "Emily," I said quietly but firmly, "give us some space." Her eyebrows shot up. "What? I'm trying to help." "Give us space," I repeated. She scoffed softly, offended, but left the room, her footsteps too quick, too agitated. When she was gone, I sat beside Grandma on the sofa. I pulled the blanket up around her shoulders. "It's okay," I whispered. "You're safe with me. I'm here." Her breathing slowed, but her eyes darted toward the hallway, toward the direction Emily had gone. Fear still lived there, raw, instinctive fear. Fear that didn't come from illness, fear that came from someone. I stroked her hair gently. After almost a full minute, she found enough strength to speak. Her voice was a thin thread, almost lost in the air. "I'm afraid." My throat tightened. "Of what, Grandma?" But she just shook her head. Her eyes filled with tears again. She couldn't say it, or she wouldn't. Maybe she didn't feel safe. I leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "I'm going to make some tea. I'll be right back." When I stood, Grandma reached suddenly for my hand, as if she didn't want me to leave her side even for a moment, as if something terrible might happen while I was away. I squeezed her hand. "I'm not going far, I promise." I went into the kitchen. Emily wasn't there, but I heard faint movements from down the hallway, her pacing again maybe, or opening a drawer. I didn't investigate, not yet. As the kettle warmed, I let everything replay in my mind. Grandma's fear, Emily's strange behavior, the bruise, the shaking hands, the inability to speak. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and the more I tried to push the thought away, the clearer it became. I brought the tea back to the living room. Grandma didn't drink it. She just stared at her own trembling fingers, whispering something too quiet to hear. I kneeled again in front of her, brushing my thumb over the bruise on her wrist. "Who did this to you?" Her eyes widened. Her lips moved. But before she could speak, Emily returned, walking quickly, purposefully, with a strange mix of guilt and defiance flickering in her expression. "How's she doing?" Emily asked, her tone soft, but her eyes sharp. Grandma recoiled, moving closer to me. The reaction was instant, unthinking, primal. I saw it. Emily saw it. And neither of us said a word. I rose slowly. "She needs rest," I said. "We both of us need to give her some space." Emily folded her arms. "You're acting like I'm the enemy." I didn't respond. I simply helped Grandma to her bedroom, settled her under the blankets, and waited until she closed her eyes again, though her breath still caught every few seconds, as if she expected the darkness to hurt her. When I came back out, Emily was standing in the hallway staring at me. "What?" I asked quietly. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said flatly. Maybe I replied, or maybe I'm finally seeing things I should have noticed a long time ago. She stiffened, her jaw clenched. "I didn't do anything." "Good," I said. "Then you have nothing to worry about." I walked past her, pretending I didn't feel her eyes burning into my back, pretending my heart wasn't hammering, pretending I wasn't afraid of what I already suspected, because the truth which I wasn't ready yet to speak aloud was settling into me with cold certainty. Whatever had happened in this house before I walked through the door, whatever had reduced my grandmother to a trembling, speechless shell, whatever fear I saw deep in her eyes, it had something to do with Emily, and I was going to find out exactly what. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my grandmother's trembling hands, her wide, terrified eyes, the bruise on her wrist, the way she clung to me like she was drowning. And behind all of it, woven like a poisoned thread, was Emily's voice saying, "She was already like this when I arrived." I lay there for hours, staring into the dark, listening for the smallest noise from down the hall. The house felt wrong, heavy, suffocating, like it was holding its breath. Even the air seemed thicker than usual, full of something unspoken. Sometime near dawn, I finally drifted off, only to jerk awake to the sound of the bathroom door clicking shut. Quiet, careful, almost too careful. Emily. I heard the faucet run for a moment, then silence again. When she stepped out into the hallway, her footsteps were soft, hesitant, not like her usual impatient stomping. I held my breath listening as she moved down the hall, paused outside Grandma's room, and then continued to the kitchen. What was she doing? I sat up slowly, my heart thudding as I listened to the cabinet doors opening, closing, drawers sliding out, glass clinking. Not in a rushed, messy way. She was searching for something, or checking something. But the sun was barely up when I finally stepped out of my room. Emily was standing by the counter stirring something in a mug. Coffee, maybe. Or tea. Hard to tell. She froze when she saw me. "Morning," she said too cheerfully, her smile forced tight at the corners. "Morning," I answered, watching her closely. She pushed the mug toward me. "I made you tea. I didn't touch it." "Thanks," I said. "But I'm not thirsty." Her shoulders tensed for a moment before she slowly withdrew the mug. "Suit yourself." "What are you doing up so early?" I asked. She brushed her hair behind her ear, avoiding my eyes. "Couldn't sleep. Just worried about Grandma." Funny, she didn't look worried. She looked like someone waiting for news, anxious, irritated, impatient. I walked past her and peeked into Grandma's room. She was still asleep, curled beneath the blanket, fragile and small under the morning light. Her wrist was swollen now, the bruise darker. Seeing it again sent a sharp ache through my chest. I brushed her hair lightly, and she stirred, mumbling something I couldn't understand. I leaned closer. Her lips moved again, barely forming a word. "No, just that. One syllable. One plea." I tightened the blanket around her and stepped back, closing the door softly behind me. Emily was leaning against the counter when I returned, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "Did she say anything?" "No," I replied. "She's resting." Emily bit her lip, not worried, frustrated. I sat down at the table, folding my hands to keep them steady. "Emily," I said carefully, "I need you to tell me the truth." "All of it. What happened last night before I came home?" Her head snapped up, eyes flashing. "I already told you. Nothing happened." "Why are you interrogating me like I'm some kind of criminal?" "I'm not interrogating you," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I'm trying to understand why Grandma is terrified, why she couldn't speak, why she has a bruise on her wrist." She slammed her mug down a little too hard. "Old people bruise easily. You know that. Not like that." Her jaw clenched. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything," I said. "I'm asking." "Well, stop asking," she snapped. "You're making this worse." I didn't answer. Her defensiveness was speaking for her. She huffed and turned away, rummaging through the drawers again. It was the third time she'd opened the same drawer in less than 10 minutes. I watched her carefully. "What are you looking for?" She froze for a split second before slamming the drawer shut. "Nothing. You've opened that drawer 3 times, so I'm organizing." I glanced inside. The drawer was practically empty. Nothing to organize. Something cold washed over me. "Emily," I said softly, "did you take something from the house? From Grandma?" She spun around. "What are you even talking about?" Her voice was rising, not out of fear but anger. Anger that I was getting too close. "I'm talking about her medical papers, her bank statements, her insurance forms. They're missing." "They're not missing," she snapped. "She probably misplaced them. She forgets things all the time." "No," I said more firmly this time. "She doesn't forget things like that." Emily laughed bitterly. "Wow. Look at you, suddenly you're the perfect caretaker just because you visited last night. Where were you the past few weekends?" "Oh, right. Out with your friends, working late, living your life. Meanwhile, I'm here dealing with everything." I stiffened. The accusation hit hard, sharper than she intended. But beneath the guilt, something else grew recognition. Manipulators loved shifting blame. "I'm not saying you haven't helped," I replied quietly. "I'm asking why you're acting like this. Why you're hiding something." "I'm not hiding anything," she yelled. The kettle clicked loudly behind her, a sharp metallic snap that made her jump. Her hands shook. I stood up slowly. "You need to tell me what happened." She stepped back. "Don't talk to me like that." "How should I talk?" I demanded, finally letting the emotion crack through my voice. "Like your big sister who trusted you, like someone who believed you were helping Grandma. Because right now, all I see is someone who's lying." Her face twisted. "You don't know anything. Then tell me," I said, "before I find out myself." She glared at me for a long, tense moment. Then she grabbed her phone and stormed toward the hallway. "I'm going out," she muttered. "I need air. Emily." But she didn't look back. The front door slammed shut hard enough to rattle the picture frames on the wall. The silence that followed was worse than the slam. It crawled around me, wrapped itself around my lungs, and tightened. I waited a minute, maybe two, before I stepped back into Grandma's room. She was awake now, staring at the window with a distant, haunted expression. Her lips were trembling again. Her hands curled into the blanket like she was trying to disappear inside it. I sat beside her and took her hand gently, careful not to touch the bruise. "Grandma, can you tell me what happened?" She blinked slowly, then turned her head toward me with visible effort. Her throat worked as she swallowed. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't trust," her voice broke. "Don't trust who I whispered." Her eyes filled with tears and she shook her head terrified. Don't let her." Her breaths turned frantic, her chest rising and falling too fast. I stroked her arm until she calmed again. "It's okay," I murmured. "It's okay. I won't let anything happen to you, I promise." But even as I said it, a chill crept through me. Because Grandma wasn't talking about someone outside this house. She wasn't afraid of strangers. She wasn't afraid of an accident or a medical scare. She was afraid of Emily. I stepped into the hallway and closed the door softly. My hands were shaking. The house felt different now. Smaller, darker. Something shifted in me. I walked to the small utility room next to the laundry where the security system was installed, a leftover from when break-ins had been common years ago. Grandma never figured out how to use it, but I knew enough to check the recordings. I opened the door and felt my heart drop. The DVR console was on, lights blinking. But the cabinet that held the memory drive was slightly open. And the timestamps for last night were irregular. One block of footage, exactly 40 minutes long, was missing. Deleted. My breath caught. Emily knew about the cameras, and she had tried to erase something. I stared at the blank section on the screen, the empty timestamp where the footage should have been. My stomach twisted. Why erase 40 minutes? Unless something damning happened in those 40 minutes. The stillness of the room pressed into me as the truth settled heavy and cold. Emily wasn't panicking because Grandma was hurt. She was panicking because she'd been found out. I backed away from the console, closing the small door behind me. The hallway felt colder now. Every creak of the house sounded sharper. I needed answers. I needed to protect Grandma. I needed to figure out exactly what Emily had done. But one thing was already certain. Whatever happened last night, whatever my sister was trying to hide, whatever had left my grandmother trembling and speechless, it wasn't an accident. And it wasn't over. I spent the next hour pacing the hallway outside Grandma's room, listening for every sound inside the house, waiting for Emily to return. My chest was tight, my pulse uneven, and every passing minute made the unanswered questions louder. I kept replaying the blank space on the camera timeline, 40 minutes wiped clean. Not corrupted, not glitched, deleted. That wasn't something that happened by accident. Someone had done it. And there were only 2 people in this house last night. Before I arrived, my grandmother, who could barely climb the stairs anymore, and Emily. The idea of my sister deleting footage of needing to delete footage left a cold ache in the pit of my stomach. When I finally walked back toward the living room, I stopped dead in my tracks. The storage cabinet beneath the TV was open. I was sure I had closed it before going to bed. I crouched down slowly, looking inside. Several envelopes were missing from the organizer where Grandma kept her important papers. Not all of them, only certain ones. The ones she used most often: her insurance documents, her medication list, her bank statements. My throat tightened. Someone had been here. Someone had searched methodically. I stood abruptly, my knees almost buckling under the weight of fear and anger. I needed answers. I walked back toward the utility room and stared at the camera console again. My hands hovered over the controls. I didn't want to see something awful. But I needed to look. I rewound the footage from earlier in the day. The hallway camera flickered, showing mundane movements, me walking past with laundry, Grandma shuffling to the kitchen, Emily carrying her purse, pacing, looking frustrated. Then one moment caught my breath. Emily stood in the hallway, clutching a thick envelope to her chest, looking over her shoulder as if making sure no one saw her. She wasn't crying, she wasn't rushing. She was studying the envelope, squeezing it, and smiling. I didn't even recognize that smile. It wasn't joy or excitement, it was possession. And something darker. I backed away from the screen again, my hands shaking. I needed clarity. I needed truth, unfiltered, unedited, undeniable. I needed Grandma to tell me what she couldn't last night. I walked into her room softly, not wanting to startle her. She was awake, staring at the pattern on the curtain like she was trying to find meaning in its folds. "Grandma?" I whispered. She blinked slowly, turned her head toward me, and offered a trembling smile, one that tried so hard to be brave. I sat beside her and took her hand. "I need to ask you something," I said gently. "And I need you to nod, or shake your head if you can't speak." "Okay." She swallowed and nodded weakly. My throat tightened at how fragile she looked. "Did something happen yesterday before I came home?" She nodded once, tears filling her eyes instantly. "Did Emily do something to you?" She hesitated for a moment, fear flickering across her face, and then painfully she nodded again. I had known. And yet hearing her confirm it felt like someone was driving a knife through me. "What did she do?" My voice shook. "Did she hurt you?" Her breath hitched. She raised her bruised wrist as high as she could, her fingers trembling. She grabbed you," I whispered. A small broken nod. I closed my eyes, fighting the burn of tears. Then something unexpected happened. She tugged at my sleeve, trying to pull me closer. When I leaned in, she whispered, "Paper." Her voice cracked, but she pushed again, desperate. "Paper. She made me—" She couldn't finish, but the meaning was crystal clear. Emily forced her to sign something. My heart thudded once, painfully hard. "Do you remember what the papers were?" Her face twisted, not with confusion but with shame, as if she was apologizing for something she had no reason to apologize for. She lifted her hand, miming a signature. "Did she make you sign more than one?" I asked. A faint nod. "How many?" She hesitated, her brows pinching as she tried to recall. Then she held up 2 fingers, then 3, then let her hand fall, overwhelmed. "So several. Multiple." My breath grew shallow. "Grandma," I whispered, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" She stared at me with watery eyes, lips trembling. Her throat worked as she tried to speak. I leaned closer, desperate to hear. "Scared," she breathed. She said, "She'd take you." My heart stopped beating for a second. Emily had threatened her, threatened to take something from her. "Take someone." "Take me," I whispered. Her eyes tightened and she nodded. Emily had told her grandmother she would lose me, lose her only family if she didn't sign. Manipulation in its cruelest form. A weapon aimed at an elderly woman's heart. I felt sick. But before I could ask, more footsteps sounded on the porch. Hard, hurried, deliberate. Grandma flinched instantly, her eyes darting toward the door. "It's okay," I whispered, squeezing her hand. "I'm here." But my own blood was running cold. I stepped into the hall just as the front door opened. Emily walked in, expression unreadable, eyes unfocused, like she had been crying or screaming in her car. "Where were you?" I asked. She hung her purse on the hook slowly, carefully, even though she usually tossed it wherever it landed. "I needed air," she said. "Is that a crime now?" Her tone was sharp, but her voice trembled ever so slightly. "You weren't answering your phone." I turned it off. "Why?" "Because," she snapped, "I didn't want to listen to you interrogate me all day." I stared at her. She avoided my eyes. Something inside me, something heavy and undeniable, shifted into place. "Emily," I said quietly, "we need to talk about the missing papers." She froze. Her spine straightened. Her eyes flicked to the side for a fraction of a second. "What missing papers?" she asked too casually. "The insurance forms, the bank statements, the medical records. They're not where they're supposed to be," she shrugged. "You know how Grandma is, always misplacing things." "No," I said firmly, "she doesn't misplace the important ones." "Well, then maybe you misplaced them while you were playing detective last night." I took a slow step closer. "And the cameras? The deleted footage. Are you going to tell me that's just Grandma being forgetful too?" Her mask cracked for just a moment, her eyes widening, jaw tightening. Then she smirked, though her lips twitched like she could barely keep the expression steady. "So that's what this is. You're spying on me now. I reviewed the footage because Grandma was terrified I shot back. And you were the only one here." "Maybe she fell," Emily said sharply. "Maybe she tripped. Maybe she forgot." "She's old, Nat. Old people do that, not like this, not with bruises shaped like fingers." The words hung heavy between us. Emily swallowed hard, then she stepped closer, her face inches from mine. "You think I hurt her?" she whispered, her voice trembling not with fear but with fury. "You think I'm some kind of monster?" I didn't answer. My silence was its own confession. Her eyes hardened. "You're unbelievable." She grabbed her purse again. "Maybe I should just go, since you obviously don't want me here." Before I could respond, she stormed toward the door. "Emily, wait," she paused, gripping the handle. "Did you make her sign papers yesterday?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and rage. She didn't turn around, but her shoulders went still. For one second, just one, I thought she might answer. Tell the truth. Break down. Something. But instead she whispered, "I'm done talking to you," and slammed the door behind her. The glass rattled. The silence that followed felt colder than the winter wind leaking through the frame. I stayed frozen for a moment, staring at the door, listening to the fading sound of her footsteps on the porch. Then I walked back to Grandma's room. She looked at me through half-open eyes, searching my face with quiet desperation. I sat beside her again. "She didn't answer," I whispered. "But you did." Her fingers curled around mine, gentle but firm. "It's going to be okay," I said softly, though I wasn't sure yet how. But I knew one thing: I was done ignoring the little things. Done overlooking Emily's choices. Done assuming family meant safety. Something had happened in this house, something violent, something manipulative, something that shattered my grandmother's ability to speak without trembling. And whatever it was, I was going to uncover it. No matter what my sister had done, no matter why she had done it, no matter how painful the truth would be. Because Grandma deserved safety, she deserved dignity, she deserved justice. And I was going to make sure she got it. I didn't go after Emily, I didn't call her, I didn't even watch from the window to see where she drove off to. I just stood there in the hallway, staring at the empty doorway, listening to the echo of the slammed door fade into nothing. The house felt colder without her, but not in the way a home feels when a family member leaves. This coldness felt like relief slipping through cracks of fear, a strange mixture of dread and clarity. When I finally managed to move, the first thing I did was return to the utility room. The missing footage gnawed at me like a loose thread waiting to be pulled. I sat down, took a deep breath, and started scanning through the recordings again, not from last night, but from previous days. At first, everything looked normal. Grandma watching her morning shows, moving slowly around the kitchen, taking afternoon naps. Emily coming and going with her purse, sometimes looking annoyed, sometimes pacing while on the phone. Nothing overtly wrong. Then 4 days ago, something made me stop. Emily stood in the living room talking to someone on speakerphone. I couldn't hear the conversation, the cameras didn't pick up audio, but I could see her face, her tense jaw, the way she kept rubbing her forehead. She was arguing with someone. She kept pointing toward the hallway like she was discussing Grandma. After a minute, she slammed her palm against the counter hard enough to make the picture frame on the wall shake. Another clip. 2 days ago. Emily standing in Grandma's doorway speaking to her. Grandma's body was angled away, head-dipped hands clasped nervously. Emily pointed at her, leaning forward, her mouth sharp. Grandma shrank back like a child scolded unfairly. I felt my jaw clench. That wasn't care. That wasn't help. That was control. I kept scrubbing through the footage. One clip from the afternoon before everything happened showed Grandma trying to reach something on a high shelf. She struggled, almost fell. Emily was in the kitchen watching her. Just watching. Not helping. Not even reacting. Something inside me hardened. I needed the truth. But more than that, I needed proof, evidence. Not guesses, not suspicions, facts that no one could twist or manipulate. The sun was beginning to set when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a text message from an unfamiliar number. Call me. Important. Before I could type anything, another text came through. This is Officer Claire Holloway. Your neighbor contacted us about concern over your grandmother's safety. My stomach tightened. I called immediately. A calm female voice answered. This is Officer Holloway. Hi, sorry, I'm Natalie Harper. You texted me. Yes, she replied. A neighbor filed a concern earlier this morning. She said she heard yelling coming from your home last night, followed by crying. I froze. Crying, yes, the officer said gently. She described it as distressed. She wasn't sure if it was you, your grandmother, or someone else. My throat went dry. Grandma had cried last night, but not loudly. Unless Emily had yelled first. Ms. Harper, Officer Holloway continued, I'm checking in to confirm everyone in the house is safe. Safe. The word hit me differently now. Yes, I said automatically, we're okay. Is your grandmother currently with you? Yes, she's resting. And is there anyone else living in the home? A sibling, perhaps. I hesitated for only a moment. My sister. But she's not here right now. There was a pause. Would you like us to send someone to do a safety check? It's routine, especially for seniors. I swallowed. Let me think about it. Of course. My number is available anytime. Please call if you need assistance or if your grandmother feels unsafe. After I hung up, I stood there staring at the wall, feeling the weight of the situation settle deeper into my bones. Someone from outside had heard something last night. Someone unrelated, someone neutral, and they thought Grandma might be in danger. My hands started to shake. I needed more than camera footage. I needed professional help, guidance, protection, evidence handling. I made a decision. I went to my room, pulled out my laptop, and searched for elder abuse resources, hotlines, legal options, steps to take when a family member is involved. Every link made my stomach twist. Every definition mirrored something I had seen in my own home: intimidation, coercion, isolation, forced signatures. Words I never imagined associating with my sister. When I returned to Grandma's room, she was awake again, her eyes fluttering open as I approached. I sat beside her and brushed her hair gently. Grandma, I whispered, I'm going to help you. But I need to know something. Did Emily force you to sign more than one paper? Her lip trembled. She nodded. Do you know what any of them were for? Her breathing hitched. She shook her head slowly. She said, for bills? My heart twisted painfully. Did she tell you you'd lose me if you didn't sign? Tears welled in her eyes, and she nodded again. I held her gently while she cried quietly, her frail shoulders shaking. I rubbed her back, whispering apologies, even though none of this was her fault. A sudden vibration from the nightstand startled both of us. My phone, a text message. It was Emily. "We need to talk." Before I could respond, another message appeared. "Don't do anything stupid. And then I'll be home in an hour." A dark chill crawled up my spine. Grandma saw the look on my face and grabbed my wrist weakly. "No," she whispered. "Nat, don't. Let her—" "I won't," I said firmly. "I promise." But my heart was pounding. I couldn't face Emily unprepared. Every instinct screamed that whatever she wanted to talk about was not harmless. She wasn't coming back because she cared. She was coming back to regain control. I stepped out of the room, shutting the door softly behind me, and walked straight to the living room. My hands moved on their own as I pulled out my phone and texted back, "We'll talk when you get here." But as soon as the message sent, I turned on every backup camera, every secondary recorder, every device with a lens. I placed my phone on the shelf with the screen facing out. I positioned my grandmother's old tablet on the table, pointed toward the living room. Then I checked the hidden camera behind the bookshelf, a tiny lens I had forgotten existed until now. Everything was recording. Everything. By the time 30 minutes passed, I had set up enough evidence gathering to record a documentary. But that wasn't enough. I needed help. I needed someone else to witness the truth. I scrolled through my contacts until I reached Uncle Marcus, my mother's brother. Strong, level-headed, the one person who had always been there without failing. He lived 40 minutes away. My thumb hovered over the call button. Would involving him make things worse? Would Emily lash out harder? Would Grandma feel exposed? But then I remembered her trembling voice, her bruised wrist, her desperate whisper begging me not to trust Emily. I hit call. He answered immediately. "Nat, everything all right," my voice cracked. "Uncle Marcus, can you come here? Please, it's important." The pause on the other end was brief but heavy. "I'll be there as fast as I can." I swallowed hard relief washing through me so intensely I almost cried. "Thank you." "Nat," he said softly before hanging up, "stay with your grandmother. Don't be alone with Emily until I get there. Don't be alone with her." The fact that he said it so instinctively sent another chill through me. Grandma wasn't the only one afraid. I checked the time. Emily could walk through that door any minute. My pulse raced with every passing second, every distant car sound, every creak of the floor. I closed the curtains, turned on the living room light, tidied up papers, and then deliberately spread them again, messy enough to make her uneasy, to make her think I had found more than I had. Let her fear being exposed. Let her lose control before she even stepped inside. When footsteps finally echoed on the porch, heavy and falling too quickly, my entire body stiffened. The front door opened without knocking. Emily stepped inside, her eyes sharp, her expression tight, her movements restless. She looked at me first, then at the living room, scanning for clues. "What did you find?" she demanded. Not hello. Not how is Grandma, just that. "I found enough," I said, keeping my voice steady, even as my pulse pounded in my throat. She closed the door gently, too gently, a deliberate quietness that felt threatening in its restraint. "Nat," she said, voice lowered, footsteps slow as she approached me. "I really hope you didn't go snooping where you shouldn't." I straightened, looking her dead in the eyes. "I'm not afraid of you." A small, humorless smile tugged at her lips. "Maybe you should be." The words hung in the air like smoke, dark, suffocating, unmistakably real. My heartbeat roared in my ears, but I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I didn't back away. Instead, I whispered, "Uncle Marcus is on his way." Something flickered in her expression. A blink, a tightening of her jaw, a glimpse of fear beneath the anger. Good. Let her feel cornered. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "We're going to get to the bottom of this," I said. "Together. With witnesses. With proof." Her nostrils flared. You think you know what's going on, but you don't. You have no idea. Then tell me, I challenged. She stepped closer, inches away, her breath sharp against my cheek. The truth, she whispered, would ruin everything. I didn't blink. Maybe it should. She stared at me, a storm building behind her eyes. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure what my sister might do next. Emily didn't move at first. She stood there in the middle of the living room, breathing hard through her nose, fists clenched at her sides. Her eyes kept darting toward the camera console room, toward Grandma's bedroom door, toward the half-open drawer where papers were scattered. She was calculating, assessing, trying to decide which version of herself she needed to wear. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she laughed, short, brittle, utterly humorless. "You're really blowing this out of proportion, Nat." "I'm not," I replied quietly. "I'm finally seeing what's been happening." She paced a few steps, running her fingers through her hair, muttering to herself, "God, you always do this. You get one idea in your head and suddenly you're Joan of Arc." "I saw the footage," I said. Her steps froze. She turned slowly. "What footage?" "The hallway camera. The one you didn't know was still working." Her lips parted, then pressed into a thin line. "You're lying." I held her gaze. "Am I?" Something flickered in her expression, panic sharp and brief like a flame snuffed out too quickly. She forced a scoff. "Those cameras don't even record properly. They glitch half the time. You can't trust anything they show." The denial didn't even sound like she believed herself. A soft, trembling voice drifted from behind me. "Nat!" I turned immediately. Grandma stood in her bedroom doorway, one hand clinging to the frame to keep herself upright. Her hair was tousled, her sweater sliding off one shoulder, her eyes confused and frightened. She shouldn't have been out of bed. "Grandma," I whispered, rushing to her side, "you should rest." But she shook her head, her gaze locked on Emily. Her lips trembled. She whispered something faint, barely audible. "Don't." Emily tensed her face, going blank. "Mom, sit down. You're going to fall." Grandma flinched at the tone. That was all I needed to see. I stepped between them, shielding her. "Don't talk to her that way." Emily let out a harsh breath. "You're being ridiculous." Grandma's hand clutched my sleeve. "Nat, don't," she murmured again, her voice cracking. "I know," I whispered to her. "It's okay. I'm here." Emily rolled her eyes skyward, irritation flashing across her features. "You're acting like I'm some threat." "You are," I said sharply. She blinked, stunned. "Excuse me, you're scaring her. You've been scaring her for weeks. That's insane." "No," I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "What's insane is forcing an 84-year-old woman to sign papers." I gently led Grandma back to bed, pulled the blanket over her, and sat beside her until her breathing steadied. She held my hand like a lifeline. When I stood again, Emily was waiting in the hallway, her arms crossed, her posture sharp as a blade. I didn't force her to sign anything, she snapped. "She knows she needs help. She asked me to take care of things." "You're lying," I said, walking past her. "She told me." Emily grabbed my arm, hard. My breath caught, and for a split second, fear flashed through me. She had never grabbed me like that before, not with force, not with intent. Her voice was low, trembling with restrained fury. "You have no idea what you're talking about." I yanked my arm free. "Don't touch me." The air crackled between us. Anger, fear, betrayal, disbelief. Her chest rose and fell too quickly. "Nat, listen, please. You don't understand what's going on. Then help me understand," I said. "Tell me the truth." She swallowed hard and took a shaky step back. Her eyes flicked toward the front window again, toward the driveway. "I can't right now. That's not good enough." Before she could answer, 2 headlights swept across the curtains outside. A car door shut. Another. Heavy footsteps approached the house. Emily stiffened. "Who's that?" I didn't answer. A firm knock came next. Emily's eyes widened. "Nat, who did you call?" I kept my eyes on the doorway. "Someone who loves Grandma." Emily's jaw clenched just as I opened the door. Uncle Marcus stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, his expression set with determination. Behind him was Aunt Claire, her face drawn with concern. He took one look at me, then at Emily behind me, and he knew. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Emily's composure shattered. "What is this? Why are you here?" Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Because my sister is terrified in her own home and my niece called me crying." "That's not what happened," Emily started. But he lifted a hand, silencing her instantly. She flinched like she had been slapped, though he hadn't touched her. He turned to me. "Nat, where is she?" "In her room," I whispered. He nodded and walked toward Grandma's room. Emily lunged as if to stop him, but I stepped into her path. "Move," she hissed. "No," I whispered. Aunt Claire placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "Stay behind me if she tries anything." Emily let out a shaky, humorless laugh. "You're all insane." But she didn't move again. When Marcus returned from Grandma's room a minute later, his face was pale with fury, lips pressed into a razor-thin line. He turned to Emily. "What did you do to her?" She stiffened defensively. "Nothing. She's confused. Her wrist is bruised." He said each word clipped. Her voice is hoarse from crying, and she's too afraid to look me in the eyes. Emily swallowed hard. "You're twisting things." "No," he replied coldly. "You are." She backed up until her shoulders hit the wall. I didn't mean." Marcus stepped forward. "Look at me. Did you make her sign anything?" Her eyes darted toward her purse. I didn't need an answer. Marcus saw it too. He exhaled slowly. "Where are the documents?" Emily's breath stuttered. They're mine. They belong to Evelyn," he said. "And if you coerced her, I didn't," Marcus said quietly. "So you admit she signed something." Emily froze. I saw the moment she realized she'd trapped herself. Her lips parted slightly, her breath faltering. "No," she whispered. "No, I didn't mean I didn't say Marcus didn't speak." He simply looked at her. That silence was worse than yelling. Finally, Emily broke. "Fine," she shouted. "Yes, I made her sign some papers, but she needed to. She can't handle things anymore." "I was just trying to help," that Marcus said calmly, "is not your choice to make. She's incapable. She forgets things. She's declining, and that gives you the right to take her rights away." Emily's face twisted. "Someone has to. Nat isn't here enough. You don't visit. I'm the only one who does anything around here that doesn't give you ownership," I said quietly. Her gaze snapped to mine. If I hadn't stepped in, she would have lost everything she shouted. "Bill's debt medical decisions. None of you know what it's been like. I've been the one on the phone for hours. I've been the one fighting with insurance. I've been the one cleaning up her mistakes." "That doesn't excuse hurting her," I said. "I didn't hurt her, she panicked. She always panics. You squeezed her wrist." She went still. Marcus took a slow breath. Elder abuse is a crime." The color drained from her face. Aunt Claire whispered something under her breath, something like, "Oh my God." But the room was too quiet to hide it. Emily's voice cracked as she answered. I didn't mean it wasn't supposed to go that far." "So it did go that far," I said. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away violently. "You're all acting like I'm some monster. I was trying to help. No one appreciates what I do. No one even notices." "We notice," I said softly. "We just didn't see what was happening behind closed doors." Emily hugged herself. "I'm not the villain here." I didn't answer. Pain flickered in her expression, sharp enough to cut. Marcus finally spoke. We're taking the papers." "You can't," she whispered fiercely. "Those are private. If they were legitimate, he said you wouldn't be afraid to show them." Her chest heaved. "If you take them, everything falls apart." "No," I said, stepping closer. "Now everything starts to come together." Marcus reached for her purse, slowly giving her a chance to comply. But Emily jerked it away. "No, give it," he instructed. "You can't make me." "We can," he said, "and we will." She looked between the three of us. Me, Marcus, Claire, and something inside her cracked a jagged fracture spreading across whatever story she'd been telling herself. Then she screamed. A raw, panicked, desperate sound, not anger but terror. She ran for the door. Marcus caught her arm before she made it 2 steps. "Stop!" She thrashed, sobbing now, her hair falling over her face. "Let me go. You don't understand. You're going to ruin everything." Claire grabbed her other arm carefully. "Em, calm down. No one wants to hurt you." "No," she screamed. "You're all against me." "You're all trying to make me look crazy." "No one said that," I replied. "Liar." Her voice shattered into a broken sob. "I did all of this for her," she cried. "For Grandma. For us. You don't know what I've been dealing with. You don't know how close we were to losing everything." "Then why delete the footage?" I whispered. She froze. A silence fell heavy over the room. Marcus's eyes widened. "What footage?" Emily shook her head violently. No, I didn't. I didn't delete." "Yes," I said softly. "You did." Marcus stared at her in disbelief. What did you do?" Her breath hitched. Her body went slack, all fight draining out of her in an instant. "I just wanted to fix things," she whispered. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Marcus took her purse gently, no longer needing force. She didn't resist. When he opened it, the sound of rustling papers filled the room. Legal forms, bank forms, insurance claim authorizations. One document titled, "Durable Power of Attorney." Signed. My grandmother's signature shaky and uneven. Marcus's voice was barely audible. "My God." I reached for the wall to keep myself standing. Grandma hadn't stood a chance, not with fear used as a weapon, not with manipulation disguised as help, not with my own sister orchestrating it. Emily sank to her knees, sobbing into her hands, and all I could think was that the truth had finally broken open and nothing in our family would ever be the same again. Marcus didn't say a word as he sifted through the papers he had pulled from Emily's purse. His silence was worse than anger, worse than shouting. He looked like a man standing over the wreckage of something he thought was unbreakable. Aunt Claire stood beside him, hands pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. Emily stayed on the floor, her knees drawn up, her fingers tangled in her hair, as if trying to hold herself together. Her sobs came in small, painful bursts, trembling through the tense air. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, unable to move or think clearly. It felt like the room had tilted, like gravity had shifted, like nothing was stable anymore. Finally, Marcus exhaled a long, slow breath and looked at me. "Nat," he said gently, "we need to keep these somewhere safe." I nodded automatically, still staring at the stack of papers. Grandma's shaking signature, the dates, the titles, the legal jargon that only had one meaning: control. Everything inside me twisted. I felt sick. Emily wiped her face with the back of her arm and looked up, her mascara smudged her cheeks blotchy. "I wasn't stealing anything," she whispered. "I wasn't." Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't even sound angry when he answered. That made it worse. "You coerced an elderly woman to sign away her rights." "I didn't," Emily cried. "She agreed. She said she needed help. She was terrified." I cut in sharply. My voice cracked. "That's not help." Emily glared at me like a cornered animal. "You're twisting everything." "No," I said softly. "You are." She let out a strangled sound, a mix of frustration and desperation. "I was trying to fix things. I was trying to keep us from losing everything." Marcus frowned. Losing what? Emily looked down, picking at her nails, her breath uneven. For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it. "The house." A chill ran through me. "What are you talking about?" Her body trembled. "There was a notice. A few months ago." "What notice?" Marcus demanded. Emily squeezed her eyes shut. "A debt notice. Medical debt. Insurance changes. Something messed up in the system. Grandma's coverage changed and my stomach flipped. Why didn't you tell me?" She lifted her chin, her eyes blazing with sudden anger. Because you're never here. You show up once a week, maybe twice, and think that makes you the savior of the family. That's not fair, I whispered, though. Part of me wondered if she'd been carrying resentment long before this moment. I handled everything, Emily continued, her voice trembling. Every appointment, every pharmacy call, every bill negotiation. And do you know what was happening while I was doing all that? She pointed at me with a shaking finger. You were going out, having dinners with friends, working late, living your own life. That doesn't excuse hurting her, I said. I didn't hurt her. She yelled, then recoiled as if the sound of her own voice had slapped her. I mean, I didn't mean to. She wouldn't listen. She wouldn't cooperate. She panicked about everything and I snapped. Snapping is yelling, I said quietly. Not grabbing, not forcing signatures, not deleting footage. Emily's eyes flashed with alarm at the last part. She looked toward the camera room again, her breathing speeding up. Marcus caught the glance. His expression hardened. You tampered with the recording system. She shook her head frantically. No, I didn't. I was just M. Marcus said don't lie anymore. Not now. She pressed her hands to her face again, her voice muffled. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I just wanted to protect us. Protect Grandma. By controlling her, I asked. By scaring her. You don't understand, she whispered. You weren't here, and that gives you permission to take over her life. No, she cried. It gives me responsibility. Marcus didn't reply. Not at first. Instead, he walked slowly to a chair and sat down, elbows on his knees, the papers still in his hands. Emily, he said, after a long silence, responsibility is not ownership. She shook her head violently. I wasn't trying to own her. But everything you did was about control, I said softly. You didn't ask. You decided. Her breath stuttered. Tears streamed down her face again, but something in her posture shifted, something resistant, stubborn, refusing to bend. You're making me the villain, she whispered. You're making it look like I'm some evil sister who wants to hurt everyone. No one said evil, I said quietly. You're thinking it. I didn't respond. She stood abruptly, staggering a little, then grabbed her purse from Marcus's hand with unexpected force. I'm leaving. Marcus rose instantly. You can't. Yes, I can, her voice cracked. I'm not staying here where everyone hates me. No one hates you, Aunt Claire said gently, but Emily was already shaking her head. Yes, you do. Marcus held up a hand. You're not leaving with those papers. Emily clutched the purse against her chest. They're mine. They're evidence. He corrected his tone, calm but unyielding. We're not letting you walk away with them. Her face crumpled. Evidence of what? That I helped Grandma. That I tried to keep her from losing everything. Evidence that you manipulated her. Her expression changed, instantly, rage flashing like lightning across her face. You don't know what you're talking about. I know enough, Marcus said. No, she whispered. You know nothing. She turned on me, fury burning in her eyes. You think you're so perfect. You think you know what's best for everyone. But you're clueless. Absolutely clueless. I swallowed hard, forcing myself not to look away. If I'm clueless, then tell me the truth. For a moment I thought she would. Her chest rose and fell sharply, her lips trembling, her eyes flickering with 1,000 conflicting emotions. But then her expression hardened into stone. No, she spat. You don't deserve the truth. Marcus stepped closer. But she bolted. Straight through the hallway. Straight toward Grandma's room. Panic ripped through me. I sprinted after her. Emily, stop. She reached the door before I did and shoved it open so hard it banged against the wall. Grandma jerked upright, startled, her hands flying to her chest. Emily pointed at her, voice trembling with raw desperation. Tell them I didn't hurt you. Grandma shrank back, eyes wide with terror. My heart shattered. Emily, step away from her, I said sharply. She didn't move. Tell them she begged. Tell them the truth. But Grandma was sobbing now, shaking uncontrollably. Her hands curled into fists against the blankets. Marcus appeared behind me, his voice low and commanding. "Emily, step away. I didn't do anything," she screamed. "She's lying. Everyone's lying. No one is lying," I said, my voice barely holding together. "You scared her." "I didn't," she sobbed. She wouldn't listen. I needed her to." She stopped, because Grandma whispered a single broken word: "Please, stop." Emily froze. Then she looked at me with a face I will never forget as long as I live. A face filled with horror, shame, rage, grief, all tangled, all fighting, all drowning each other. "I didn't want this," she whispered. "I never wanted this. I know," I said softly. "But it still happened." She stared at me, trembling head to toe. "You're going to destroy me." "You destroyed yourself," Marcus said quietly. Emily lowered her head, her tears falling silently onto the wooden floor. For the first time, she didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't deny. She just broke, completely, utterly. The room filled with the sound of her sobbing, raw, guttural, childlike. Grandma cried too, the fragile sound barely rising above a whisper. Aunt Claire covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. Marcus stood like a man grieving something he couldn't name. And I felt everything at once. Fear, anger, relief, sadness, a grief so deep it scraped the edges of my chest. When Emily finally lifted her head, her face streaked with tears, she whispered, "What happens now?" I didn't have an answer. No one did. But the truth was finally out in the open, exposed like a wound that could no longer be hidden. And nothing about our lives would ever be the same again. Emily didn't speak again after that. She just sat on the floor in the corner of Grandma's room with her back against the wall, knees drawn up, arms wrapped tightly around herself, like she was trying to hold all her broken pieces in place. Her breathing came in soft, uneven gasps, the kind that made her shoulders tremble every few seconds. Grandma, still shaking, stared at her with a mixture of terror and grief. She whispered my name faintly, almost like a plea, and I rushed to her side, sitting on the edge of the bed and taking her hand gently. "It's okay," I whispered, even though nothing felt okay. "She's not going to hurt you." Emily flinched at that, her eyes flicking toward us before she buried her face in her hands again. The silence that followed was thick with everything none of us knew how to say. Marcus finally stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Emily, we need to go into the living room. Give her space." "I don't want to leave her," Emily whispered through her fingers. "You're scaring her," I said, quietly stroking Grandma's hand. Emily lifted her head just enough to look at me. Her eyes were red, swollen, almost hollow. I didn't mean to. Marcus reached down and offered her his hand. "Come on, sweetheart." She hesitated, then let him help her up. Her movements were exhausted, mechanical, as if she didn't fully recognize where she was or what she'd done. Marcus guided her toward the hallway, while Aunt Claire stayed behind with Grandma, speaking softly to her, soothing her trembling. I stepped out into the hallway and closed the bedroom door gently, sealing Grandma in a small bubble of safety. The moment the door clicked shut, Emily's composure snapped again. She turned toward me, eyes glassy with desperation. "Nat, please, don't report this. Please don't let him take the papers. Please don't tell anyone." "Emily," I said, keeping my voice steady even as my heart hammered, "it's too late for hiding." She shook her head violently. No, you don't understand. If this goes out, if anyone finds out what she signed, I could lose everything. My job, my apartment, my life." Marcus stepped between us, his voice low. "Your life isn't over, but your actions have consequences." Emily let out a hysterical laugh. "Consequences? For trying to help, for being the only one who actually cares about what happens to Grandma's future." "You hurt her," I said, my voice cracking. "You scared her. You threatened her." "I didn't threaten her," she shouted. I told her that if she didn't get her affairs in order, things would fall apart, that she might lose her house, that you might move out, she cut herself off abruptly, eyes widening. "That you what?" I asked softly. Her lips trembled. "Nothing." Marcus folded his arms. Finish the sentence. No. Emily. She shook her head, panic bubbling up again. No. No, I'm not saying anything else without someone twisting it. I already see what's happening. You're all making me into some monster. No one has to make you into anything I said. Your behavior speaks for itself. Emily's mouth opened, but no insult came out this time. Instead, she let her back slide down the wall until she was sitting again, hugging her knees tightly. I didn't mean to hurt her, she whispered. I just wanted her to listen. A long silence filled the hallway. Marcus finally exhaled. Nat, let's sit down. We need to decide our next steps. Emily snapped her head up. No, you don't get to decide what happens to me. It's not about what happens to you, Marcus replied. It's about protecting your grandmother. Emily scoffed bitterly, wiping her face with trembling fingers. Right, because you've always cared about her so much. Marcus's expression tightened, but he didn't take the bait. Emily, I love my mother, but I also work 80 hours a week. I can't be here daily. I trusted you. She closed her eyes like the words physically hurt. We went into the living room. The tension followed us like a shadow. Aunt Claire joined us shortly after closing Grandma's door gently behind her. She's calmer, she said softly, but she's terrified that Emily will come back in. Emily winced, curling in on herself even more. We all sat me on the couch, Marcus in the recliner, Claire beside me. Emily stayed on the floor, her back against the cold coffee table. For a moment, the only sound was the ticking of the living room clock. Marcus finally broke the silence. Nat, have you contacted anyone? Authorities, Adult Protective Services? Emily's head snapped up. What? No. I swallowed hard. I haven't called anyone yet. Officer Holloway reached out earlier. Our neighbor reported hearing crying last night. Emily's face went chalk white. Someone called the police. Not because of us, I said, because they were worried about Grandma. Emily pressed her hands against her face again. Oh, God. Marcus leaned forward. Nat, listen. You can't handle this alone. You shouldn't. I know, I whispered, staring at my hands. Emily looked up sharply. You're not doing this. You're not going to throw me into a system that ruins lives. No one wants to ruin your life, Aunt Claire said gently. Yes, they do, Emily shot back. That's what this is. This is all about punishing me because I tried to take responsibility wrong, I said quietly. This is about protecting the woman who raised both of us. Emily's breath hitched. She blinked rapidly, shaking her head. She chose me, she said firmly, though her voice wavered. She wanted me to handle things. She told me she was afraid of you, I whispered. Emily's face cracked again, pain, anger, disbelief warring beneath the surface. She didn't mean that. She's confused. She's old. That doesn't make her delusional, Marcus said. Emily's lips parted as if to argue, but nothing came out. The silence returned, pressing down on us like weight. Marcus broke it again. We need to secure the documents. Nat, do you have somewhere safe we can put them? I nodded. Yes, my safe at work. It's fireproof, password protected, and no one has access except me. Emily flinched like I'd struck her. Marcus began gathering the papers, stacking them neatly. Tomorrow we'll take them to an attorney. Emily shot up from the floor, panic flooding her expression. No, 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 you can't. You can't involve lawyers. Marcus leveled her with a steady gaze. We have to. She stared at him with pure dread. Please, Marcus, if those documents get reviewed, I could... She swallowed hard. I could go to jail. No one said anything. She took a shaky step toward me. Nat, please, please don't do this. I'm your sister. My voice came out small but steady. And she's our grandmother. Emily's face contorted. I didn't mean to hurt her. I got overwhelmed. I was scared. Everything was falling apart and I didn't know what to do and she wouldn't listen. You still had no right, I said quietly. A wild, haunted look filled her eyes. So what, you're going to throw me away after everything I've done? No, I said firmly. I'm going to stop you from hurting her again. She let out a low, broken sob. Aunt Claire reached toward her, but Emily jerked away. Don't touch me, Marcus stood towering over her. Emily, sit down. No, she whispered fiercely. I know what you're doing. You're trying to trap me. No one wants to trap you, I said. Emily laughed bitterly. You think I don't see it? The way you're all looking at me like I'm dangerous, like I'm some kind of criminal? Marcus didn't flinch. You coerced an elderly woman into signing legal documents. That is a crime. Emily shook her head violently. No. I was protecting us. I was making sure we didn't lose everything because of stupid bills and stupid bureaucrats and Grandma's stupid failing memory. The words hung in the air, jagged and ugly. Aunt Claire whispered, horrified. Emily slapped a hand over her own mouth, realizing too late what she had said. I felt something inside me snap, not anger, not even sadness. Something quiet, something final. Marcus exhaled slowly. This isn't safe anymore. Emily's chest heaved. Safe. I've been keeping this family safe for months. You've been drowning, I said softly. And instead of asking for help, you dragged Grandma down with you. She stared at me, eyes full of devastation, like she was realizing something she had been refusing to see. I didn't want to be alone in it, she whispered. I closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, Marcus was already dialing a number on his phone. Emily's voice shook. What are you doing? A wellness check, he said calmly. A report, a request for guidance. This has gone too far. Emily stepped back, shaking her head. No, please don't, Emily, I whispered. Stop. Let him talk. This isn't punishment, it's protection. For Grandma, and maybe for you too. No, she screamed. You're all against me. She ran toward the door. Marcus lunged and blocked her path. You're not leaving. She sobbed, clawing at his arm, trembling violently. Please don't do this, Nat, please. I felt tears burning my eyes as I whispered, I'm sorry. She froze at the sound of my voice. Then she crumpled to the floor, sobbing like a child broken lost, and finally out of ways to hide from the truth. And as I watched her cry as Grandma lay trembling in the next room, I realized something with painful clarity. We had reached the point of no return, and nothing we did from here on out would be able to undo the damage already done. Emily didn't get up from the floor for a long time. She stayed curled in on herself, shaking her breath, coming in ragged little gasps that sounded like someone trying to breathe through a collapsing chest. Marcus stood by the doorway with the phone still in his hand, waiting for the dispatch officer to return to the line. Aunt Claire quietly fetched a glass of water that Emily never reached for. I couldn't look away from her. Part of me wanted to crouch down beside her and put a hand on her back like I used to when we were little, and she skinned her knee. Another part of me, the part that remembered Grandma's terror, the bruises, the missing footage, kept my body frozen in place. Finally, Marcus spoke softly into the phone. Yes, thank you. We'll wait here. He hung up, rubbing his forehead as though trying to press away a migraine. His voice was low, but steady. They're sending an officer to check on the household and talk to everyone involved. It's not an arrest. It's a welfare and safety assessment. Emily lifted her head at that, her eyes swollen and desperate. No, please no. I can't talk to the police. You can't make me do that. No one is making you, Marcus said, but they need to hear what happened. She shook her head violently. They'll twist everything. They'll make me sound like a monster. You need help, Em, Aunt Claire said gently. Emily laughed a sharp, broken sound. Help, this is help, calling the police on me. No, I said quietly. Protecting Grandma is help. You need something different, something none of us are trained to give you. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I thought you'd take my side. I felt that sentence like a punch to the chest. There are no sides, there's just right and wrong. She closed her eyes. Easy for you to say. I didn't answer. What was there to say? Nothing would make this moment hurt less. A soft knock at the front door interrupted the thick silence. Marcus stiffened and went to open it. An officer stepped inside, mid-30s, calm demeanor, kind eyes. A woman wearing a Navy uniform with a badge that read Holloway. The same officer who called earlier. "Good evening," she said quietly. "We received a wellness request." "May I ask who placed the call?" Marcus raised his hand. She nodded. "Thank you. And the senior in question, where is she? In her room?" Aunt Claire replied. "She's resting, but she's shaken." Officer Holloway's face tightened with understanding. "I'll need to check on her soon. But first, I need to speak with everyone here. Separately." Emily let out a choked cry. "Please don't, I don't want, please." The officer raised a hand, her voice gentle. "You're not in trouble at this moment. Right now, we're just assessing safety. I promise I will not jump to conclusions." Emily didn't look reassured. Officer Holloway turned to me. "Let's start with you." I nodded and followed her to the kitchen. She motioned for me to sit, then took a seat opposite me, her posture relaxed but attentive. "You're Natalie Harper?" she asked. "Yes." "And you live here with your grandmother?" "I stay here several nights a week," I explained. "My younger sister lives here full-time." "Understood. Tell me what happened tonight." I took a deep breath and told her everything. I didn't embellish anything, but I didn't hide it either. The missing footage, Grandma's bruised wrist, the forced signatures, Emily's meltdown. My voice trembled a few times, especially when I described Grandma's fear, but Officer Holloway never interrupted. She just listened, nodding occasionally, jotting notes in a small leather-bound pad. When I finished, she closed her notebook gently. "You did the right thing calling for support." "I didn't call," I said. "My uncle did." "Then he did the right thing." A wave of relief washed through me. "Is my grandmother in danger?" I asked quietly. "Legally, I mean." "No," the officer said firmly. "She is the victim here, not the perpetrator." That word victim sat heavily on my chest. "Is my sister going to be arrested?" She didn't answer immediately. "That depends on the full statements, the condition of your grandmother, and whether there is evidence of coercion or physical harm." "There is," I whispered. She nodded slowly, and I realized she wasn't ignoring that she was documenting it. After she finished with me, she asked to speak with Marcus and Claire. I waited in the hallway, wringing my hands, pacing back and forth. When she finally returned to the living room, she knelt gently in front of Emily, who was still sitting on the floor, like she no longer had the strength to stand. "Emily," Officer Holloway said softly, "can we talk?" Emily didn't look up. "I don't want to." "That's okay. You don't have to say anything you're uncomfortable with. But I need to hear your perspective, and I need to check on your grandmother." Emily curled tighter into herself. "You'll arrest me." "Not necessarily," the officer said. "Tonight is about safety. If you've been overwhelmed, stressed, taking on too much, we can talk about mental health support. There are options that don't involve criminal charges." Emily blinked, startled. Officer Holloway gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Let's start simply. Did you make your grandmother sign legal documents recently?" Emily's lips trembled. Her voice was barely audible. "Yes." "Did she understand what she was signing?" A long silence. Then, with tears streaming down her face, Emily whispered, "I don't know." The officer's expression softened. "Thank you for your honesty." Emily broke again, her sobs filling the room like a wound split open. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she cried. "I swear I didn't. Everything felt so heavy and she kept forgetting things and I was scared. That fear doesn't justify force," Officer Holloway said gently. "But it does tell me you need help. We're going to talk about that." Emily lowered her head onto her knees again, shoulders trembling. The officer stood and motioned for me to join her. "May I speak with your grandmother now?" I nodded and led her to the bedroom. Grandma looked up startled when the officer entered, but her expression softened when she saw me standing behind her. "It's okay, Grandma," I whispered. "She's here to help." Officer Holloway crouched beside the bed, her voice warm and gentle. "Mrs. Evelyn Harper, my name is Claire. I'm here to make sure you're safe." May I ask you a few questions? Grandma nodded weakly. Did someone in this house hurt you? Grandma's eyes filled with tears immediately. She looked at me, then at the officer, then closed her eyes and whispered one word. Yes. My heart shattered. Officer Holloway kept her tone soft. Was it your granddaughter, Emily? Grandma hesitated, visibly terrified to confirm it. I squeezed her hand. You're safe, I whispered. She can't hurt you anymore. Grandma swallowed hard, opened her eyes again and whispered, yes. The officer nodded her face, gentle but solemn. Thank you, ma'am. That was very brave. She stood and guided me back into the hallway. Her voice dropped to a quiet murmur. She's in no condition to make decisions tonight. We'll need a temporary protective order. The safest option is separating them for now. I nodded. Emily can leave. I'll request that she stays with another family member or a friend. Not here. What if she refuses? Then I issue the order formally. I exhaled shakily. Thank you. We returned to the living room. Emily looked up instantly, reading something in the officer's expression. What did she say? She asked, her voice shaking. Officer Holloway spoke calmly. Emily, for tonight you need to stay elsewhere. You can gather a few essentials and your sister will bring you anything else you need later. Emily stared at her, stunned. You're kicking me out of my home. No, the officer said gently. I'm protecting your grandmother. Emily let out a trembling sob, covering her mouth with her hands. She hates me. She actually hates me. No, I said softly, unable to hold back my tears. She's just scared. And whose fault is that? Emily shot back, her voice cracking apart. Yours. For not being here when she needed help, or mine for trying to do everything alone. I swallowed hard. We can talk about that later. But tonight you need to go. Emily's face crumpled. Nat, please don't do this. I closed my eyes. I have to. She stood slowly, her legs shaking. I don't have anywhere to go. Marcus cleared his throat. You can stay with me and Claire tonight. Emily shook her head. You don't want me. We do, Claire said softly. You're family, but you need distance, and Grandma needs peace. Emily wiped her face, shoulders trembling. I don't deserve any of you. No one said that, Claire whispered. After a long, painful silence, Emily finally nodded, her voice barely audible. Okay. Marcus helped her gather a backpack. She didn't look at me again, not once, as she walked toward the door. The officer escorted her outside, talking to her quietly, professionally, compassionately. When the door closed and the house fell silent again, Aunt Claire collapsed onto the couch, crying softly. Marcus rubbed his hands over his face, exhaling a breath he'd been holding for hours. I leaned my forehead against the wall, tears slipping down my cheeks. I had wanted truth. I had wanted justice. But watching my sister walk out of the house like a ghost torn from her own life, it didn't feel like justice. It felt like loss. Deep, heavy, irreversible loss. And I knew with a sinking certainty that the hardest parts were still ahead of us. The house felt unbearably quiet after Emily left. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses into your ears and makes your own heartbeat sound loud and intrusive. I stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the closed door, my hand still resting on the wall as though I needed support just to stay upright. Marcus touched my shoulder gently. Nat, he said softly, come sit down. I wanted to move, but my legs didn't obey immediately. When they finally did, I followed him into the living room where Aunt Claire sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her face pale from the emotional weight of the last hour. She's safe now, Claire whispered. Your grandmother, that's what matters. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. But Emily? Marcus exhaled deeply. She's not in a good state of mind, but she's somewhere safe for the night. That gives us time to breathe. Breathe. The word felt almost foreign. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling, letting the events of the evening replay in my mind. The deleted footage, the papers, Grandma's trembling voice, Emily's confession, the police officer's gentle firmness, the way my sister sobbed as she left. "Do you think she'll forgive me?" I whispered. Marcus sat beside me, rubbing his hands together in thought. Nat, this wasn't about forgiveness. This was about protecting someone who couldn't protect herself. "I know," I murmured, "but she's still my sister." "And your grandmother is still your grandmother," he replied softly. "One doesn't erase the responsibility of the other." I wiped my eyes with the sleeve of my sweater. I never thought we'd end up here. Not like this. None of us did. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, voice steady and pragmatic, the way he always became when he shifted into problem-solving mode. "We need to figure out exactly what those documents were." I swallowed hard. "They were bad, weren't they?" Marcus nodded grimly. "Yes, very. One of them was a durable power of attorney. If it had gone through the proper channels, Emily would have had full legal authority over your grandmother's finances, medical decisions, everything." The room suddenly felt colder. "So she would have controlled her entire life." "Yes," he said quietly. "And another form was a transfer on death deed." I blinked. "A what?" "It means that when Evelyn passes, the house automatically becomes the legal property of whoever is named on that deed. And she named Emily," I whispered. Marcus didn't have to answer. The truth hung heavy between us. My chest tightened. So she wasn't just panicking, she was planning badly, recklessly, but planning. Marcus confirmed. She may have convinced herself it was to protect the family, but the way she went about it crossed every possible line. A shiver ran through me. "What do we do now?" "We take these documents to an attorney tomorrow," he said. "First thing in the morning." I nodded slowly, trying to steady the swirl of fear and anger inside me. Aunt Claire reached over and squeezed my hand. "Nat, sweetheart, you did everything right tonight. Everything." "Then why does it feel so awful?" I whispered. "Because doing the right thing can still break your heart," she said gently. I closed my eyes, swallowing the knot in my throat. After a moment, Marcus stood. "Let's check on Evelyn." We went to Grandma's room and I opened the door quietly. She was awake, her eyes wide and glassy, staring at the ceiling. When she heard our footsteps, she turned her head slightly. "Grandma," I whispered, coming to sit beside her. "How are you feeling?" Her voice was small and fragile, barely a thread. "Where is she?" "She went to stay with Marcus for the night," I said. "She won't come back tonight. You're safe." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't want to hurt her. I know," I said, taking her cold hand carefully. "But you were hurt. You were scared. And that matters." She closed her eyes and a single tear slipped down her cheek. "She's my baby." My voice broke. "She's my sister. But we can love someone and still not let them hurt us." Grandma trembled, her fingers tightening weakly around mine. "Is she okay?" "She will be," Marcus answered gently. "She needs help. More help than we knew." Grandma nodded slowly, as if understanding that truth brought as much pain as it did relief. We stayed with her until her breathing steadied. When she finally drifted into sleep, I leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I'm here," I whispered. "I won't leave you." Aunt Claire closed the door softly as we stepped back into the hallway. Marcus exhaled. "Nat, you should rest too. I'm not tired. You're exhausted." He wasn't wrong, but resting felt impossible. My nerves were too frayed, my heart too heavy. Still, after they left, and after I checked the locks 3 times, and after I reassured myself that Emily wasn't going to come bursting back into the house, I finally crawled into bed. Sleep didn't come easily. Every creak of the house made me sit up. Every car passing outside made me check the window. My mind raced with questions, some that had answers, others that didn't. How long had Emily been planning this? When did helping become hurting? Why didn't she tell me she was overwhelmed? Why didn't I see it sooner? I must have drifted off eventually because I woke up to the faint sound of murmuring voices downstairs. My heart lurched. I sat up too quickly, dizziness sweeping over me. I heard Marcus's voice. He must have come early. I threw on a sweater and rushed downstairs. He was standing in the living room holding a folder stuffed with the documents from last night. When he turned to face me, his expression was grim. "I've been going through them in detail," he said. I braced myself. "And it's worse than I thought." My stomach dropped. He handed me the top document. "This isn't just a power of attorney. It's one that includes financial authority, medical decisions, and property transfers. And look at the date." I looked. It wasn't from yesterday, it wasn't from last week, it was from 2 months ago. My breath stalled. "She's been trying to get Grandma to sign this for months." "Yes," Marcus said quietly. "And I found something else." He handed me another paper. It was a loan application, in Grandma's name. My hands shook. "This can't be real." "It is," he said. "But it wasn't processed. Probably because Emily didn't have all the signatures she needed." I felt sick. She could have put Grandma into thousands of dollars in debt. "She already tried," Marcus said grimly. "But the bank flagged the inconsistencies. That's probably when she panicked and pushed harder." I stared at the documents, my vision blurring as tears welled in my eyes. She wasn't trying to help. She was desperate. "And dangerous," Marcus said gently. I pressed a hand to my forehead, struggling to breathe evenly. What do we do?" "We go to the attorney today," he said. "We invalidate everything. We protect Evelyn. And we set legal boundaries for Emily. A restraining order may be necessary." The idea made my stomach twist. "She'll hate me forever. She'll be alive to hate you," Marcus said. "So will Evelyn." I sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. After a long moment, I whispered, "Marcus, what if Emily really didn't mean any harm? What if she was just drowning and didn't know how to say it? Intent doesn't erase impact," he said gently. I closed my eyes, letting that sink in. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Nat, she needs help, real help, not secrecy, not avoidance, and not control." I nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." He exhaled with relief. "Good. The attorney is expecting us at 11. I took a shaky breath. "Will this destroy her?" He looked at me with heavy but honest eyes. "No, this will save her from destroying herself." I wiped my face and stood. My legs trembled, but I stayed upright. "For Grandma," I said softly. "For Grandma," he echoed. And the moment the words left my mouth, I knew something had changed inside me, something steady, something resolute, something that would not bend no matter how painful the next steps would be. Because this wasn't just about crisis anymore. It was about justice, about survival, and about reclaiming the safety my grandmother had lost. Today, everything would begin to change. And there was no turning back. Marcus drove us to the attorney's office in silence. Not the cold kind of silence, more like the heavy protective kind that wrapped itself around us, because none of us had the energy to speak. Grandma was resting at home with Aunt Claire, safe for the moment. I checked my phone every few minutes anyway, terrified I'd see a message saying she had woken up crying or asking for me. The morning light through the car window felt strangely harsh. Every passing building looked foreign, like the world had shifted overnight, and nothing quite belonged where it used to be. When we finally pulled into the small legal complex downtown, my chest tightened. Marcus helped me out of the car, his hand firm and steady on my elbow. "You're okay," he murmured. I nodded, even though I didn't feel okay at all. Inside, the attorney's office was warm and polished, with dark wooden shelves filled with books and certificates framed neatly along the wall. A woman in her early 50s stepped out from behind a desk, offering a calm smile. "You must be Natalie," she said. "I'm attorney Marianne Rhodes. Please come in." We sat down at a conference table, and Marcus placed the folder of documents between us. Marianne opened it, her expression shifting with every page. She turned curiosity, concern, and finally a sharp professional seriousness. "Who drafted these?" she asked. Emily, I said softly. My sister. And your grandmother signed them? Yes, but under pressure. She didn't understand what she was signing. Marianne nodded, already making notes. That matters. A lot. She continued reading, her eyebrows drawing closer together. After several minutes, she closed the folder gently and looked at us. I'm going to be very honest with you, she said. These documents are not only fraudulent, they're dangerous. My hands tightened together nervously. Dangerous, how she tapped the top sheet. This durable power of attorney would have given your sister unrestricted access to all of your grandmother's assets, bank accounts, medical decisions, property transactions. With this alone, she could have legally sold the house without your grandmother ever stepping foot into a bank. My breath caught, and the rest Marianne's voice softened, as though she knew the words would land hard. The loan applications could have put your grandmother in severe debt, and the transfer on death deed that would have ensured the house legally belonged to Emily the moment your grandmother passed. I felt nauseous. Marcus exhaled sharply. We suspected as much. Marianne folded her hands. These aren't signs of someone trying to help. These are signs of someone desperate for control and willing to manipulate an elderly person to get it. I swallowed hard. What do we do? First, she said, we file for immediate invalidation of these documents based on coercion, incapacity, and elder abuse. These signatures won't hold up legally once we present evidence. I nodded slowly, and my sister Marianne hesitated before answering. That depends on how far you want to go. Marcus leaned forward. Explain. When elder abuse and coercion are involved, she said there are criminal implications. Police involvement, charges ranging from financial fraud to physical assault depending on what can be proven. My throat tightened painfully. I don't want to destroy her life. Marianne offered a sympathetic look. Natalie, your sister's actions put your grandmother at risk. This will have consequences, but it doesn't automatically mean jail time. There are mental health diversion programs, protective orders, mandated counseling. The court may seek rehabilitation rather than punishment. That eased something in my chest. But she continued, a protective order is essential. Your grandmother is vulnerable. She needs legal space, physical space. I nodded again, tears burning behind my eyes. I understand. Marianne gave me a small, reassuring smile. You're doing the right thing. I let out a shaky exhale. I wasn't sure if it felt like the right thing yet, but it felt like the necessary thing. After signing initial paperwork, Marcus and I left the office. The cold air outside hit my skin like a wave, waking me from the emotional fog. We walked toward the car without speaking, both processing everything we had heard. Halfway there, Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and frowned deeply. It's Claire, he murmured. My heart dropped. Is Grandma okay? He answered immediately. Claire. What happened? His face stiffened. We're coming. He hung up and turned to me. Your grandmother's upset. She says she saw someone outside the window. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. Someone who? She said it looked like Emily. My stomach twisted violently. Marcus, Emily is with you, isn't she? He shook his head. She wasn't there when Claire woke up. She left early this morning. She said she needed to think. Oh, God. We rushed to the car and Marcus sped out of the parking lot. My pulse thudded painfully against my ribs. Was Emily spiraling? Was she trying to confront Grandma again? Or was she trying to retrieve something she had forgotten? Something she feared losing? The drive felt endless. When we finally pulled into the driveway, Claire was standing on the porch. Arms wrapped around herself, worry etched onto every line of her face. She's inside, she said. Shaken. I didn't see anyone outside, but she swears she did. I hurried into the house. Grandma was sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching her blanket in trembling fists. Her eyes were wild, darting toward the window every few seconds. Grandma, I whispered, kneeling beside her. It's okay. We're here now. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. She was there, she whispered. Outside, watching. My blood ran cold. Did she try to come in? Grandma shook her head. Just watching. Marcus and Claire exchanged worried glances behind me. She can't be here, Marcus said. She's under a temporary verbal order to keep distance. But is she following it? I whispered. Before anyone could respond, something hit the window. A soft tap. We all jumped. Marcus strode over and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing, just the yard empty and still. But on the sill pressed against the glass was something unmistakable. A footprint, a small one. Emily's size. My stomach dropped. She was here. Marcus pressed his lips into a hard line. That's it. Enough is enough. He reached for his phone again. Who are you calling? I asked, the officer handling our case. Marcus, wait. Maybe she's just scared she's escalating, he said firmly, and we cannot risk Evelyn's safety. I knew he was right, but my heart ached. After he spoke to the officer, Grandma's breathing slowly eased. I made her chamomile tea and sat with her until she fell asleep again, though her sleep was thin and restless, punctuated by little whimpers that made my chest tighten. When I stepped back into the hallway, Marcus was waiting. She's sending an officer over, he said, and she wants Emily's location if we have it. I looked down, guilt creeping up my throat. I don't know where she is. She left a voicemail, Claire said softly. My breath caught. What did she say? Claire handed me her phone. Listen, I pressed play. Emily's voice came through the speaker, shaky, breathless, frantic. Claire, tell Nat I'm sorry. I needed to see her. I needed to make sure she was okay. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose any of you, but if you report me, it's over. Everything's over. Please, please don't let them decide what happens to me. Please don't. The message cut off abruptly. I closed my eyes, tears stinging. She was unraveling, breaking piece by piece. Officer Holloway arrived shortly after, speaking with calm authority. She assessed the situation, checked on Grandma, documented the footprint, and took statements. This confirms instability, she said quietly. Your sister is not acting rationally. For everyone's safety, including hers, I recommend we proceed with a formal protective order today. My heart felt like it was splitting in two. Will they arrest her? Not if she cooperates, the officer said. If she's found, we bring her in for evaluation. She may need psychiatric assessment, she may need treatment, but she must not be near your grandmother. I nodded shakily. After the officer left the house, fell into another heavy silence. Marcus stood in the doorway, looking out at the yard, scanning for movement. Claire sat with Grandma again, holding her hand, and I leaned against the wall, staring at the floor, trying to make sense of the storm that had swallowed us whole. My phone buzzed, a text message. It was from an unknown number, but the message was unmistakably hers. Nat, I didn't want this to happen, but if you try to take everything from me, I won't let you. A chill ran through me so sharply I nearly dropped the phone. She was unraveling, and now she was starting to fight back. The fragile line we had been walking was gone. The war I never wanted was beginning. The message on my phone kept replaying in my head long after the screen went dark. Nat, I didn't want this to happen, but if you try to take everything from me, I won't let you. The words felt like ice water down my spine. A threat, a warning, a cry for help. Maybe all three twisted together into something unstable and dangerous. I showed the message to Marcus first. His expression hardened instantly, his jaw tightening as he studied the screen. This isn't good, he murmured. She's slipping. She's not thinking clearly anymore. Aunt Claire hovered behind him, her fingers trembling as she clasped them together. Do you think she'll come back? Yes, Marcus said. Absolutely. The certainty in his voice made my heart drop. I glanced toward Grandma's room, terrified she might wake up and feel that same cold dread. I couldn't let her see this. I couldn't let her fear grow any stronger. Officer Holloway had told us she'd file a formal request for a protective order, but paperwork took time. And time was the one thing we didn't have. She's watching the house, I whispered. She was outside earlier. What if she tries to get inside? We're not letting that happen, Marcus said firmly. Not now. Not ever again. He pulled out his phone and called the officer back, reporting the threatening message. Her tone was calm, almost too calm, as she assured him they would prioritize locating Emily. Prioritize. A word that sounded reassuring on paper, but not when your sister was unraveling somewhere in the dark. I couldn't sit still after that. I paced the living room, checked each window lock twice, then 3 times. I turned on every exterior light. I watched the yard like it was a battlefield I needed to defend. Claire followed me quietly. She's scared Nat, she murmured. People act irrationally when they're afraid. I know, I said, but fear doesn't justify hurting Grandma. No, it doesn't, she agreed softly, but it helps us understand why she's spiraling. Understanding didn't make it hurt less. Grandma woke an hour later, still fragile but awake enough to sit with us on the couch. She held my hand like it was the only thing anchoring her to the room. Marcus stayed close, strong and steady beside her. Claire offered tea and blankets and soft words that made my chest ache. But peace didn't last long. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time it was a voicemail notification. I didn't want to play it. I knew who it was. But Marcus nodded. We need to hear it. With trembling fingers, I hit play. At first all I heard was heavy breathing, panicked, shaky. Then Emily's voice broke through. Nat, I know what you're doing. You're trying to make me the villain. But I'm not. I'm not. A sob cut through the message. You think you're protecting her, but you're protecting her from me. I'm the only one who has been here. I'm the only one who stayed. And now you're just going to take everything. Take her. Take the house. Take my life. Her breathing sped up rapidly, bordering on hyperventilation. Please, please call me, please. I don't know what to do. The message ended abruptly, like she had dropped the phone or someone had interrupted her. I played it again. Then again. Each replay felt like another crack forming in my chest. That's not anger, Claire whispered. That's panic. But panic can still be dangerous, Marcus said. He dialed Officer Holloway again. We have another voicemail. She's unstable, possibly a danger to herself or others. I stared at the phone in my hand. Somewhere in the confusion of fear and exhaustion, a new worry crept in. What if she hurts herself? I whispered. Claire squeezed my shoulder. Then we need to find her before that happens. Marcus hung up the call. They're sending a unit to look for her car. Until then, we stay here with Evelyn. We all nodded, but fate didn't wait for the officers. Around 3 in the afternoon, I noticed something strange, the soft beep of the gate sensor by the driveway. A sound that meant someone had opened the side latch. My head snapped up instantly. Marcus followed my gaze. Stay here, he whispered, stepping toward the window. But I didn't listen. I moved closer, keeping low, peering out through the small gap in the curtains, and my heart nearly stopped. Emily was standing in the middle of the yard, not dressed for the cold, not moving, just standing there staring at the house with a look I couldn't decipher, part grief, part fury, part something fractured and desperate. Her hair was messy, her eyes red and swollen, her clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile, lost. Claire gasped softly behind me. Oh, God. Emily lifted her eyes toward the window. She saw me immediately. Our gazes locked, her face crumpled. In 1 second, she looked like the little sister who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares, whispering, "Don't leave me." In the next second, she looked like a stranger. I stepped back instinctively. Marcus pulled the curtain closed. Don't open the door. She's my sister, I whispered. She's unstable, he countered. We heard her footsteps approach the porch, slow, uneven steps, like she wasn't sure she wanted to be walking them. Then a soft knock on the door. Not loud, not angry, just broken, Nat, her voice wavered. Please, please open the door. Marcus shook his head. No. Not until officers arrive. I can talk to her through the door, I said, voice trembling. Only through the door, Marcus emphasized. I approached slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could feel the vibrations in my ribs. Grandma whimpered softly from the couch, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. I placed my hand against the door, feeling its cool surface against my palm. Emily. A shaky breath. Nat, please, let me in. I can't. Her voice cracked. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I just need to talk. We can talk like this. Silence. Then a sob. Do you hate me? No, I whispered, feeling tears sting my eyes. But I'm scared. You're scared of me, she choked out. I'm scared of what you did, and what you might do next. Another beat of silence. Then her voice dropped to a small, aching whisper. I didn't mean to hurt her, I know, I said gently, but you did. More sobs. Harder this time, painful, exhausted. Then Nat. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. My throat tightened painfully. Emily, you need help. I need you, she whispered. You said we're family. That means something, doesn't it? Yes, I whispered. It means I'm going to make sure you get the help you need, even if you hate me for it. She went silent, completely. Then another sound, a faint siren in the distance. Close, getting closer. Emily inhaled sharply. You called them. They're here to help, I said. Not hurt you. You lied, she whispered. You lied to me. Emily, you're choosing them over me. No, I said quickly. I'm choosing safety, for all of us. The siren grew louder. Tires crunched on the gravel outside. Emily let out a soft, broken sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Then I heard her footsteps running across the yard. Emily, I shouted. Marcus grabbed my arm before I could fling the door open. No, let the officers handle it. I froze, trembling tears streaming down my face. Outside officers were shouting her name, calling for her to stop, telling her they wanted to talk. I pressed my forehead against the door and cried silently. Because no matter how this ended, nothing about our family would ever be whole again. And the sister I grew up with, the sister I laughed with, fought with, shared secrets with, felt impossibly far away, maybe too far to ever bring back. The morning after the sentencing felt strangely quiet, as if the house itself were holding its breath. Light pushed gently across the living room floor, stretching in thin golden lines toward the sofa where Grandma slept. For the first time in weeks, her face looked soft, unpinched by fear, untouched by the dark memories that had been haunting her nights. I stood near the window with my hands cupped around a warm mug of tea, letting the silence settle into me like something sacred. It was over. Not emotionally, not entirely, but legally, finally, blessedly over. I heard a small stir behind me. When I turned, Grandma blinked her eyes open, adjusting to the morning light. She looked around the room slowly, as if reacquainting herself with a place that hadn't felt safe for far too long. When her gaze found me, her lips curved in the faintest, most fragile smile. "You're up early," she murmured. "So are you," I whispered back. She shifted her weight and sat up, one hand bracing the arm of the sofa. The movement used to be effortless for her. Today it looked deliberate, controlled, but steady. I crossed the room and helped her sit comfortably. "You slept through the night," I said softly. "No nightmares." "I know," she replied. Her voice had a small tremor, not fear, but disbelief. "It feels strange to wake up without the shadows." I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "The shadows aren't coming back." She nodded, though doubt flickered briefly in her eyes. Healing wasn't linear. Trauma didn't evaporate just because a judge declared justice. But something had shifted in her, undeniable and new. A looseness across her shoulders, a deeper breath, a quiet bravery. A knock sounded at the door, firm but polite. I recognized the rhythm immediately, Aunt Claire. She stepped inside with a gentle smile, a bag of groceries in her hands, her presence steady as ever. "Morning, loves," she said, her voice bright but respectful of the calm atmosphere. "Thought I'd make breakfast." Grandma visibly relaxed. That would be lovely. Claire set the groceries down and touched my arm. "How are you holding up?" I hesitated, searching for the right word. "Weightless," I said. "And exhausted at the same time." "That's how freedom feels after fear," she replied softly. 10 minutes later, while Claire whisked eggs in the kitchen, my phone buzzed. A message from Attorney Carson. I opened it quickly. Protective order officially granted. Financial restoration complete. All documents now secured and monitored. I exhaled deeply, letting the confirmation settle into my bones. The last loose threads of the legal fight had been tied. What lay ahead was emotional healing, something no system could legislate for us. When I returned to the living room, Grandma was watching sunlight fall across the garden outside. She used to water those flowers every morning. That simple routine had been stolen from her by fear. "Would you like to go outside later?" I asked gently. Her eyes glistened. "Yes, I think I would." We ate breakfast quietly, but it wasn't the silence of tension. It was the silence of a home rediscovering itself. Later that afternoon, as Grandma rested, I sat at the dining table and spread out the documents Carson had sent. Our finances were finally protected. Control of the estate, which Emily had tried so desperately to seize, was back where it belonged. I reviewed everything meticulously, signing where needed, organizing files into neat folders. It wasn't the paperwork itself that brought relief, it was the act of reclaiming what had nearly been taken. A symbolic undoing of Emily's grip. When I finished, I stepped outside to breathe in the cool air. The sky was soft gray, promising a storm later, but for now it held steady. I let the wind brush against my skin, grounding me. Chores filled the next hour, watering plants, sweeping the porch, repairing the squeaky hinge on the gate. Ordinary tasks that had once been ordinary, and then became terrifying, and now felt sacred. Every corner of the house felt different somehow. Not because the furniture had moved or the walls had changed, but because fear no longer owned the space. Claire left after lunch, promising to return later with dessert. Grandma napped peacefully in her room. The quiet settled again, warm and whole. But the peace was interrupted by another knock, not sharp, not panicked. Controlled. Familiar. When I opened the door, Marcus stood there carrying a small stack of mail and a worried softness in his eyes. "Just checking on you," he said. "We're okay," I replied. "Better than okay, actually." He stepped inside, scanning the room as if confirming it for himself. "I've been thinking about yesterday," he admitted. "About what the judge said. About how everything played out." "So have I said. "It doesn't feel like victory." "No," he agreed, "but it feels like truth." Truth had been the quiet hero in all of this. Truth in the footage. Truth in Grandma's trembling voice. Truth in Emily's own unraveling. Truth had saved us. We sat together on the sofa, the afternoon dimming softly around us. "She'll get help now," Marcus said, his tone gentle. "Real help?" "I hope so," I murmured. "I don't want to lose my sister forever." "You didn't lose her. She got lost." I swallowed hard, letting the words find a place inside me. Maybe he was right. Maybe there was a path for her to find her way back one day. But that day wasn't today. Grandma woke a little later, and with surprising strength asked, "Can we sit on the porch?" We helped her outside, guiding her down the steps, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. She settled into her old rocking chair, the same one she used to read stories to us from when we were little. She touched its armrest gently, lovingly. "I thought I'd never sit here again," she whispered. "You're home," I told her. "Really home." As the sun dipped behind the trees, she reached for my hand. Her grip wasn't weak anymore, it was steady. "You saved me," she said softly. "No," I whispered back. "You asked me to listen. And that changed everything." She smiled at that, the kind of smile that comes only after surviving something unthinkable. For a moment, we simply breathed together, letting the quiet evening wrap around us. A bird chirped somewhere in the distance. The wind rustled through the leaves. And I realized that healing had already begun, not with a dramatic moment, but with small breaths, small comforts, small truths. Later that night, as I tucked Grandma into bed and turned off the lights, I paused in the hallway. The house no longer felt like a battleground. It felt like it belonged to us again, not to fear, not to manipulation, not to control. Walking to the front door, I locked it gently, not out of panic, but habit. Then I stood there for a while, listening to the soft creaks of the settling house, the distant hum of cars on the road, the rhythm of normal life returning. When I finally went to bed, I didn't fall asleep right away. Instead, I whispered a quiet promise into the darkness. We're safe now. We really are. And for the first time in a long time, I believed myself. Before you go, if this story stayed with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever faced a betrayal inside your own family? Share your experience in the comments. I read every single one. If you found meaning, comfort, or strength in this journey, please consider liking the video and subscribing so you can stay with us for more true stories that touch the heart and remind us we're not alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying. And thank you for believing in the courage it takes to face the truth.